Hey Darko, I have some questions today for you about investment. First of all, when does growing on your own make sense, and when does it make sense to take in investment?
Well, if you need cash in order to be able to grow, then you need to consider external sources of funding, right? And if you don't generate enough positive cash flow from the business, then you will have a hard time getting a loan from a bank. So you will turn to investors and basically raise an investment in order to do that.
What kind of investors are out there, and do they have different things that they're looking for when they screen a company?
I mean, there's a lot of different investor types. So usually it really depends what kind of business you are and what kind of potential you have, right? But in general, you can differentiate between purely financial investors, so they only care about financial return in the end, and more strategic investors. Strategic investors usually will perhaps take a minority share in the beginning, but at one point down the road, they might consider even acquiring your company.
Why is it that some companies seem to be able to raise billions without any effort at all, whereas the rest of us are struggling to raise a few hundred thousand?
I mean, I wouldn't say that they can race without any effort, because usually there's the kind of anecdote that all success comes overnight after 10 years of hard work, right? So, but why some companies have relatively little trouble raising cash is connected with facts like that they are really growing fast, that they generate a certain cash flow, certain profitability potentially even, and so forth and so forth. And because of all of that, and that their perceived market is large enough, they are then able to raise substantial sums relatively easily.
And what does a raise process look like in practice, and how long does it take?
Well, raising funds, it depends. If you're really startup in the beginning, you will usually talk with more angel investor types who are always able to decide fast, which also means that your timeline for raising the investment is only a few months. When the company develops and becomes a bit more mature and larger and so forth, you go into a more structured process for raising the funds, which includes also institutional investors on the other side, because they are the ones who are able to invest more significant sums into your company. And that almost always also means that the time that you need in order to properly fundraise prolongs. To how long? Basically anything from 6 up to 12 months.
We often hear talk of smart money. What can an investor offer other than their money?
Um, I mean, smart money, to be honest, quite a lot of investors say that they are smart money, especially venture capital funds like to say that. But in reality, they are not actually smart money. They do bring with themselves certain governance principles and so forth, but not pure smartness. So the smart money, from my perspective, primarily relates to certain individuals who take also a relatively operational role in the company. Those can be early advisors and similar, more angel investors who are vested into the company, not only because of their investment, but also with their interest. So I think that you need to think along those terms about the topic of smart money.
You mentioned governance coming from your investors. In general, how are things different once you have investors to how they were before?
I mean, when you're completely on your own, everything's in your head, right? So you act at the same time as the CEO, the founder, the shareholder, the BOD, and so forth, right? But whenever you accept external people as shareholders, so investors, you need to take into account that they want to understand what is happening with the company as well. So you will need to start to report and basically present where you're going with the company, what is happening with the company, and so forth. And that's basically the major change that happens when you onboard investors.
Thank you, Darko, and I look forward to our next talk.
Thanks, Anton. Interested to learn more? Visit www.dg180.ch and get in touch.